On this episode of the John1911 Podcast, are Staccatos drop safe? Will SCOTUS save bump stocks? The left wants to ban striker guns, and they finally caught Slingshot McGee.
Okay, good evening, everybody. This is Kraken and Marky, and this is episode 339 of the John1911 Podcast. Today is Checking the Phone, Friday, May 31st, 10:50 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have to timestamp stuff because you never know as fast as things change with the news. I don't want people to think that if something changes, then we talk about something and it turns out that we're behind the times by the time we publish. So, what a day. How have you been, Kraken? What's going on?
Wet.
Oh, no.
Another 24 hours of rain. Pretty
no.
solid. Yeah, it's just, I'm over it. I'm just ready for a couple of dry days.
I mean, so the thing is, when you're wet, that means I'm about to get wet, which sounds like a
Yep.
really bad porn movie. So I don't, and also I have sworn, I didn't tell you this, but I was like, we're not going to spend the next 15 minutes talking about the weather because I don't want to be the podcast for its old men talk about the weather and we talk about it too much. So
No, just had to throw it. That's like all that's going on because you can't race, and I don't enjoy shooting in the rain if I don't have to. So my garage reorganization is at a standstill because I can't roll my tool cabinets out in the rain so I can power wash the deck in there. So
oh. Yeah,
I've
the
actually
water's.
had to work for a living for a couple days now.
Uh-oh. Ooh, boy.
Nothing
Hey
else
now.
to do.
Don't don't be bringing up real jobs to me. I don't want to. Don't scare me. I haven't lived in the real world my whole life. Don't let me start now. So yeah, the rain has kept us. We still don't have the septic system fully installed. We have the tank. We just don't have the leach lines or the drain lines in, and we're in a window where they said it was going to be. And again, I swear I was going to talk about the damn weather. We were going to have 9 days of dry weather. And 2 days ago, I was out there at the John1911 range, and it rained twice in one day. Like it's supposed to be dry. It rained twice. But the good news is we have full HVAC running, so I was able to. We can even completely cool off the HVAC guys are calling the garage, which is the tractor area where the equipment is, and yeah, I had it 67 degrees in there, blasting with these two units, so that's good. But we still don't have
Nice.
toilets, still don't have sinks, and now that we're getting into some dry weather, until you've told me that we're not, the guy who's doing the septic stuff for us, we will call him. I'm not kidding. His name is Cletus. I am actually not kidding. His name is Cletus, and Cletus was injured last week. He was doing stuff, not wearing eye protection. Luckily, nothing for us or with guns, but he damaged his eyes, and then a few days later proceeded to do something else where he wasn't wearing eye protection, damaged his eyes a second time, and he's been in and out of the hospital and emergency rooms because his eyes are like all kinds of fucked up. So this guy can't run any heavy equipment. He can't, and we've this last part we've paid him because he installed the tanks and everything. So we've paid him to finish the septic, and now he can't work. And I don't know how long it's going to be. So one more thing to the John1911 range. I just hope he doesn't go blind. He's more important than our septic, but that's kind of where we're at. Now we have dry weather, we have an injury, and we're kind of held up on that. So, and by the way, I posted something about because I started opening up the rifle range. Because I had to close it because we had, you do anything with guns, everything stops. People want to hang out and shoot guns, and people were telling us we should bale hay. We've checked with the local farmers in the past. They won't run their hay equipment. They're nice big balers on their hills, the big round balers, because they just they run the special cutters They're like
Yeah.
offset cutters. They don't use bush hogs to cut for hay. They use these cutters that kind of hang out to the side. And so getting into some of these areas on our rifle range with those hills, it's kind of their dead ends. You can't really get out of them with the cutters. So that's a problem. Then you get in with the balers. So we have offered on the rifle range that people can see on our website, hey, come and pull a bunch of hay off the range, and none of them want to do it because they don't want to risk either it's too tight for the cutters, and then with the balers and their tractors, they don't want to run them on those hills. We obviously don't have any West Virginia farmers around us, boys in West Virginia. I mean, they'll hang out the side of the tractor to keep it from tipping over, like a
I was
sailboat.
gonna say, my God, I mean, those aren't even hills for around here. If we didn't hay anything that looked like the range, we wouldn't have any hay out here. We
Yeah,
cut we cut grass in road ditches and bale it.
yeah. You told me that. I was like, dang, that's
Like
yeah,
literally, you go down a gravel road and take a brush hog and a rake and run a baler up through there. Interstate medians uh, or 4-lane divided highway, they'll cut the hay out of that and bale it. So I can see the side cutter, but you could run a brush hog and a rake through there, and then run a Vermeer round baler up through there, no problem.
okay. So you can use a brush hog to bale hay.
Well, you can cut it, and then you gotta rake it because that puts it into your rows, and then you can get it. We used to pull a square baler up and down hills like that with
Yeah.
like an old John Deere 70. It doesn't take anything, and
Yeah, we do that. Like
uh,
I grew up with square balers, but like these round balers, like all the farmers around me now, they run these big round balers, and they sit real high in the air. And
yeah,
I mean I never saw a round bale until I was probably in my 30s.
really,
Or dang near. I was like, that didn't exist. But I grew up in West Virginia, Virginia.
yeah,
So like, I just, like it's real common now. Like to see square bales now is very unusual. Square balers are basically for specialty people, but it's all round bales. Look, and maybe if it was their property, but I mean, again, it's not. They could. I don't know. I saw some round bales today laying in fields in places that were pretty tight that I was surprised. I was like, gosh, they could get round bales there. Won't they get them off our range? They're
yeah.
just
If you can
not.
make a U-turn with a tractor, you can round bale those. They make Vermeer balers here in Iowa, and we round bale everything on first cutting, and then second, third cutting square bales for the most part, unless you have like really big pasture. But uh, you can drag a round baler around, and if you can make a U-turn with a tractor, you can run a round baler through there.
Yeah, the thing is, there's some places on the range where making a U-turn would be tough, and it would be
Hmm.
pretty steep too, and turning those tractors sideways. So, I mean, I get it. I mean, it's just not the juice isn't worth the squeeze for a lot of them. So, all you folks that suggested we bale the hay, I appreciate it, but unless I'm going to buy the equipment and bale it myself, which is not out of the realm of possibility in the future. But we have other fields that when we bought that property, we had farmers that were taking hay off of it. I've got
Yeah,
fields up front and in back that they were taking hay off of. So, we'll see. It's just not, you got to have a barn to store hay in. You just can't, you know what I mean? You just can't. People don't realize that you got to keep that hay dry. So,
yep.
and you got to put it up. So, all right, you know what? Let's get talking to some gun stuff here. This kind of blew up. We're going to keep the Donald Trump stuff a little, maybe a little. Not it's not going to be front and center for this episode unless you want to talk about it. Um, I figure I can rouse Danny up and we can all have we can have a three-way, and make each other
Yeah.
wet. Yeah, right. So, um, um,
The only thing I got to say on that, the best advice I have heard on that was I was watching Greg Gutfeld right before we logged on here,
yeah.
and his opinion on it was everybody just needs to relax. It's not the end of the world. Get up, go golfing, do whatever tomorrow, and don't obsess on it.
Yep. We'll just take it day by day and see what happens.
Yep.
Donald Trump's a
Slow.
big boy, and he seems to be real good at fighting.
Exactly.
Let me put it. Let me just here's a throwback to I will never forget watching Mitt Romney and Barack Obama debating on TV. I think it was the third debate because I think Romney won the first debate, but it was the
Yeah.
third debate. It was the one where Obama said famously the '80s called and they want their foreign policy back when they were asking. They asked each candidate what's the greatest threat to the United States, and Romney said Russia. And Obama goes, the '80s called, and they want their foreign policy back. And I remember watching that episode, like screaming at fucking Romney, because I think it was it Candy Crowley, like he was just like he wouldn't fight,
Yeah.
and it's like Romney wouldn't punch back, and if it was Mitt Romney that was jammed up on 34 charges or convictions and, giving whores money and, and all this other kind of stuff, part of me is like, I don't tell Mike Tyson, I don't tell Mike Tyson how to fight. And and I'm not going to tell Donald Trump how to fight. He seems like he knows how to fight.
I was
So
just picturing a Mormon and whores together in the same sentence.
stop. Um,
There's the title, Mormons and whores.
Mormons and whores. Oh shit. So anyway, sent you this a few days ago. We talked about it. I mean, I guess it kind of had cracked the internet in half, or at least in certain group. Do you think there's a chance that the Staccato people are going to put a fatwa out on Ben Steger for drop testing their 2011? Because you actually call their guy 2011.
Oh man, I'll tell you, I haven't checked the board simply because I just didn't want to see the explosion. But if you that's actually one of the reasons I got out of Staccatos was you could not criticize one at all, or you were just labeled a non-believer and shunned from the group, and you didn't know what you were talking about, and
Is this
you
like a
know, because
Facebook? Is this like a Facebook group you're talking about?
oh yeah, there's Facebook pages that
Okay.
are staccato based pages, and they argued about two things: Holosun versus Trigicon for optics, and 2011 or Olights versus Streamlight and Surefire. So if you ran a Holosun and an Olight, you were a poor who couldn't afford any better, and they think their $2,500 staccatos are big shit, and they're big swinging big dick when they go buy a P.
Mm. Well, okay. So I don't know all the staccato models. Again, it's all boils down to one thing. It's a club that you just buy yourself into. It's not about
Yep.
actually shooting or skill. So, but there may be people that listen to this podcast that haven't heard what I'm referring to. Ben Steger, you would spell it Stoger, but you pronounce it Steger. He's kind of the bad boy of USPSA. Very talented shooter. Has been for a long time. Ben Steger is a shooter, and um, he was training. The way he said it on the internet, he interfaced with a law enforcement agency, and he is because he interfaces with law enforcement agencies. A lot of these law enforcement agencies have been buying staccatos because Customs and Border was it no, U.S. Marshal Service was the first one that officially
Mm-hmm.
picked up Staccato, right? Wasn't it the
Yeah.
Marshal Service, their whatever their team is? So they picked up Staccato. So a lot of these law enforcement agencies, they monkey see, monkey do, because they really don't have the budget or the wherewithal to test their own stuff. So they just go with what other people say. That's one of the dirty secrets to law enforcement sales. That's why you see a lot of law enforcement people, either they will copy the FBI, they will copy the military, or they will copy like a major department like LAPD or NYPD or maybe a certain SWAT team. This particular group picked up staccatos. Staccatos have been gaining in popularity, and Steger interfaced with one of these law enforcement groups, and they told him privately, "Hey, these Staccatos are not drop safe, and we evaluated them, and we did not approve them for duty because they're not drop safe." And Steger's like, I hadn't thought about that. That's probably true because Steger's a performance-based shooter, and he had a primer in a round, filmed it, dropped it, and at first drop, crown first, bam, the gun goes off. And what was interesting is, in kind of reference to your group of, I guess it's the Facebook people, is a lot of them started claiming that the video was fake because the thumb safety was on and the hammer didn't drop, but the gun went off. And they accused Steger of faking this or somehow, doing whatever. And they just it's like they don't understand what a Series 70 firing pin, how it operates in a gun, and and kind of how that works. And it caused all kinds of drama with, because it caused drama with the Staccato people that you refer to, because they're, I guess they're on half cock all the time, no pun intended. And then the people that want to shit on the Staccatos because, like if you're a Glock guy and now you're no longer the cool Glock guy because it's the Staccatos guys that are cool, so now you get to tear them down. So again, it all boils down to a bunch of people with strong opinions about guns that don't actually shoot because they just want to pretend that they're gun guys, but they don't shoot. They don't hardly shoot at all. And it just was interesting to watch some of this play out. People not realizing that a Series 70 versus a Series 80 1911. The reason they invented the Series 80 1911 was to give a physical block to the firing pin so it doesn't go with inertia. And however, a lot of people don't realize that you can make a Series 70 1911 drop safe. You put like a titanium firing pin in it and an extra power firing pin spring, and from reasonable heights that you would drop the gun, say 6 feet max. Like you're not gonna drop from a helicopter. It shouldn't go off. And here's a fun fact: if you are worried about a 1911 not being drop safe, do you want to buy one that is drop safe? In theory, you should be able to buy any California approved 1911 because it has to pass the drops. It has to, part of the California approved list is it has to be drop safe.
Yeah.
Isn't that true?
Yeah. There's literally, people don't understand the California. It's literally a list of guns that you can buy in California. If it's not on the list, you ain't getting it.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got all these consumer protections built into the requirements to make the list. One of my sons lives out there, and it's just crazy that what they've got to go through to shoot and hunt. And
Yeah, I know Ed Brown had some guns. Let me see. Let's see. Wilson Combat. Let's see. California approved 1911. I would be willing to bet you that Wilson probably has the CQB. Yeah, they have California models. I am over 21 years old, accept cookies. Holy cow. Wilson has a whole bunch of guns that are California approved.
yeah,
California, see the classic, professional, CQB light rail, CQB compact, stealth, protector, tactical elite, tactical super grade, classic super grade, elite, professional. Let's see here. Ed Brown, California drop safe. Or no, California approved. Let's see, they have a California Special Forces, a California Cobra Carry. So they have a California Special Forces. I'm seeing California. So a lot of these companies have guns that should pass this standard. One of the ways to what we always did with traditional 1911s, and it is kind of a problem with some of the newer guns with all these like these flat wire springs or these what do they call these springs? There's the piano wire, there's the flat wire, and then it's the what's the one in between? It's the it's like it's got the term some kind of metal in it, like something spring. Someone sent us an email podcast at John1911. I can't remember. It escapes you what it's a type of spring. It's a metal a spring. But anyway, some of these recoil springs in a lot of these guns, like they're 40,000 rounds, or I think H&K, their published replacement on their recoil spring on their VP9s was 10,000 rounds. Well, on a 1911, I would replace my recoil springs about every 3,000 rounds. I could go a little bit longer. I think I was always very conservative, but you could go five maybe, depending on what you're
Yeah.
shooting and the size of the gun. But I would buy Wolf springs, and the Wolf would ship with a firing pin spring. So I would change the recoil spring, and I would change the firing pin spring. The firing pin spring didn't need to be changed. The reason we would change the firing pin spring is to make sure the spring was always fully powered up to make it less likely go off if you drop it in the wrong way, to make it theoretically drop safe. That was kind of the argument for that. Um, you know, I am tempted to drop my EDC X9L to see if it's drop safe. I don't really. I'm so busy right now with the with stuff at the range. I'm not inclined to do it. But I do have a big cement floor out there now. I guess I could do it. I couldn't do it in the office. I mean, that would just. I mean, I guess in theory I could. But I don't want to booger up the crown on my gun. So I mean, if I could, I don't know, maybe put a fixture on it. But Wilson did just come out with the port. Did you see they've got the ported they've got compensated barrels now on their X.
Just add-ons,
Well, I don't know.
just
It's well,
like an extension.
yeah. So what they're doing is they're not taking a 5-inch gun and porting it. You take the 4-inch gun, and I guess it's a threaded barrel with a port compensator. Again, I'm not going to go into the difference between
Yeah.
both exactly, but because I don't quite know exactly technically, but they probably permanently thread it on. So you end up with about a 5-inch gun. So you get the because you got the 4-inch, right?
Yeah, my X9's the 4-inch and my
Yeah.
CQB's the 5-inch.
Yeah, the X. So this is for the X frame guns. So they're
Yeah.
selling they're selling a barrel now where they put a compensator on the end of it. Basically, it turns it into a they didn't use this term. Remember the roll-in special? That was hot for like a minute.
Mhm.
Take a Glock 19 and then put a ported barrel on the front of it and make it to like a Glock 17 length. That's what Wilson is doing, and I thought that was really interesting, and I would be interested in dealing with that. But I'd have to probably send a gun in because that barrel has to be fitted. I doubt that.
Yeah.
I would doubt that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's drop in. I don't want to speak for Wilson. I don't know if it is or it's not. I would think it's not drop in, just because I don't think those barrels are. I don't think the Wilson guns shoot so accurately. I doubt they're drop in barrels. I could be wrong.
I would be highly surprised.
Yeah, I could be wrong. I don't know. So I don't know. We'll see. But to be completely honest, with my gun right now, I've gone so long shooting it without changing without changing the recoil spring in it. I wouldn't be surprised if it popped a primer, if I dropped it, the wrong way. And I have dropped that gun. Like I did a post. I was I was exercising. I was outside. I was doing some kind of sprint drill, you know, And, I wear my gun and I hear clunk, and I look down, and it's in the parking lot. And I was like, it is loaded. It's like, well, fuck, it didn't go off. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I have to check. I'm not going to sit here and say, I don't think there's no way my gun would ever go off because, and then like, I guess you better drop it to check it. So, I thought that was, I don't know. Maybe you should go into the Staccato forums or the groups, whatever they call it on the Facebook, and see if they're in there trying to shoot each other in the head or whatever they're trying to do.
I will do that. I'm pretty sure I'm still a member of several of them, but the tribalism is just incredible. It's just as bad like on the SIG 320 forums. If you
Oh
even
yeah.
remotely suggest that there could have been a ghost firing, you get piled on like crazy, and it's like, guys, they're mechanical objects. They're gonna break. They're gonna have issues. There's not a gun out there that you can't shoot to failure if you shoot enough, or it can have issues, or it's metal moving parts. Something is gonna break. So it's not a knock on the company if something breaks. It might be a knock on the company if it breaks on every single piece they put out. But an isolated incident is not the end of the world. So quit shooting the messenger.
Yeah, I'm still not convinced. I mean, I feel like I'm gonna say something really bad. I'm not trying to. It just popped into my head. It's like these movies play in my head, Doc. I can't help it. I feel like I feel like there's a difference between the SIG P320 and the SIG M17 with the thumb safety guns and the non-thumb safety guns. Whether you want to, call it an
Mm-hmm.
M17 or a thumb safety gun because it's not really an Army gun, neither here nor there. But I just feel in my gut that the thumb safety guns are they. I don't know this scientifically, but I just feel like I'm not seeing a lot of reports of guns blowing up or guns ghost firing or slam firing, that have thumb safeties. Could be
Mm-hmm.
wrong, and it's one of the, I just it to me it kind of feels like some of the stuff with COVID, you know, the shot. No one gets sick from the shot, or everything 100% curable, or you once you get the shot, you can't get whatever, and then so many years later, well, okay, never mind. Turns out some of that was true, and it's like I can't wait till one day when they get a handle on when Sig gets a handle on it, it's gonna come out and be like, yeah, if you want to be totally safe, you're going to have the thumb safety M17.
Yeah.
I don't, I can't prove it. I just feel like that might be a thing. I don't know. You're in these groups.
Well,
Have any of these guns
I've
blown
had
up?
both. I haven't seen any reports of M17s doing anything like that. Now, here's where I kind of get with it. The military's using the M17s. Uh, you give anything to a Marine, they can fuck up an anvil with a rubber mallet.
Yeah.
So if there were going to be issues, I would think we would see reports out of the military of issues with them. So they actually SIG makes a 320 with a thumb safety. That's not the M17 version.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I've had a couple of them, and I've almost completely gotten away from striker fire guns that don't have some type of safety. It's just become a personal thing with me. I've got options with safeties on them. Uh, so I carry my Wilson stuff. I've got a SIG P220 that's single action only. I carry cocked and locked, and for me, my comfort level has just become more thumb safety oriented versus striker guns. I've still got some Glocks and stuff, but
Yeah.
I find myself more and more defaulting to something with an actual manual safety on it.
Yeah, I do as well. I mean, it kind of depends. Like, it really kind of came home to me when I switched to appendix carry and reholstering.
Mm-hmm.
And it was with the VP9. The VP9 is when I really switched to doing appendix carry. And, it's like everything was fine. Obviously, I didn't have any issues. But, I mean, there's just not a whole lot. If something goes wrong, it's like it can go wrong quick. And in the real world, and this again, all these trainers, and again, I've worked as a trainer. I'm not there's an argument that people will make, and it's not necessarily the worst advice, but absolutes are not real. And the idea that you will never need to reholster quickly is complete horse shit. Because I have on the street have literally, this has happened multiple times, shit's going crazy, cops are coming, and you hear them. They're screaming and yelling, police, police, and they're working their way through a building. And literally, I can hear them, and I got some motherfucker with a gun in his face. And I'm like, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, and they're right around the corner. And blip, gun is away, and they come around the corner, and just in time. And they just like then we explain what's going on. Where I had to fucking tuck that gun away quick because they come around that corner and they just see me with a gun, I'm gonna get
Yep.
shot. And it's like again, that's an
And
unusual
even worse than
case.
that's fumble fucking around trying to reholster as they come around the corner. That's even worse than having it in your hand.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Because they're gonna look at it as, is he trying to draw down on me?
yeah, are
So
you
let
there?
alone having it in your hand, just trying to fumble around getting it in the holster as they come around the corner could be quite detrimental to your health. Yeah, can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yeah, I got you. Just said it was reconnecting, but you never went away, so I don't understand what's going on. But
That booted you out for a bit.
yeah, I guess I don't know. So it records it locally, so it'll be fine. But I mean, it's just like, well, even back in the
What was
day,
the
early
last
on,
thing you heard from me?
I heard everything. You were fine. It didn't actually drop. So it just said reconnecting on the screen. So
Oh, okay.
we're just going to
It
keep we're,
dropped
we're
you out of the room.
it did. All right. Well,
Okay.
it's okay. So, like what was I saying? I was making a point and then I got so rudely interrupted by this damn software. I'm using cellular this time and I was like, well, that didn't fucking work. Um back in the early days, like people don't realize, like people, like you'll see guys, they'll become self-aware and they'll be like, man, we live in like one of the greatest times for guns. We do in many ways. Like there's so many options with guns and technology with guns and designs and custom features. And the American gun market is so much better today in 2024 than it was in 2020. Definitely better than it was in 1980. Like it's just so much better. But
Oh, definitely.
what they don't realize is, because a lot of people don't want to hear this, is the holsters are so much better today. With all the kydex and all the leather and all the things and all the different groups and, people that start companies and they try to push the envelope and they come up with ideas. Like Raven had that little Vanguard 2 thing that would clip over the trigger guards and just, appendix carry holsters and just, the Edelon holsters, just all this
Mm-hmm.
crazy shit. And back in the day when I first started working, we didn't, if I you had to sneak guns around, we did not have a lot of great holster options. And, the truth is, this, people don't remember this, but there was a time, if you had a gun and you're on the street, a lot of people had guns, but only cops had holsters. It was rare to see holsters. Like if you
Yeah.
had a holster, it was like, are you a fucking cop? Whereas you could get away with sneaking guns around. And so, like, with a 1911, with the shit we would sometimes do to get away with sneaking guns around, because a 1911 thumb safety, grip safety, and trigger. I mean, it was like, I mean, it was unbelievable what you could get away with because, you know, it wasn't as easy to set off. There's shit we did in the 90s I would never do with a Glock. I would never do with the VP9. I certainly would do with a 320. I mean,
Yep.
you know, and it's just,
like small of the back Mexican carry.
oh God, Mexican. Man, we didn't call it fucking, we called it cross draw. I would fucking Mexican. I mean, it's like, give me a fucking break.
Mexican was anything tucked inside the waistband sans holster.
Yeah, I mean, everything was Mexican. Yeah, yeah. It's like, you know, it's like, I mean,
But we
yeah. I
carried
mean,
that. We carried a lot of stuff that way. Small of the back, no holster, tucked inside your waistband.
oh my old boss, he was he did that. The way he tells the story, it's hilarious. He tells a story. He used to sneak around with a VP9 or not VP, an HKP7, the staple gun, the squeeze cocker. And if
Yep.
people they see these guns on the internet, they're like, "Oh my God, like it's so interesting and neat." But if you've never held one, they are so thin. They're like unless you get like the double stack one, but they're so thin. And he tells a story. He was out somewhere. He was, I think, at a was it a restaurant or somewhere, and he had this gun in the small of his back, and he's sitting at dinner, and all of a sudden he's sitting there, and the gun drops out of his waistband into his ass, and he's sitting there. All of a sudden he goes, "Ooh, oh," and he's like, "Okay." So he's like, "Oh shit, I got a gun up my asshole, and I'm sitting here with
Literally.
these people." I don't know. I don't even know if he was. I don't know if the way he tells the story. I don't know if he was on his personal time or if he was like working under. I don't know what the fuck he was doing. But then he tells how he had to quietly and try to not attract attention. He slides out of a booth and he's reaching back, holding his ass as he slowly trots to the bathroom across, because the last thing he needs is this thing to now drop out of his pants, come down his pant leg, and skitter across the floor, and it's like back then, you didn't have these holster options like now. Like every town in America has some kid he's half brain damaged because he sucks Kydex fumes all day because he'll make you any crazy ass Kydex holster in his garage that you could come up with.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I need a holster for my motorcycle, or I need a holster for my paraglider, or hey, I need a holster that'll fit in that you can strap to my thermos. It's like, okay, like
Yep.
didn't do anything. Back then it was all this hand tooled leather, and it was, most of these guys, they dealt with cops, and it took 6 months to get a holster, and you had to get pretty much what they offered.
Mhm.
It's like, I mean, yeah. So back in the day, man, like grip safety, thumb safeties, that was, I mean, 1911, you could do some crazy shit with a 1911. You really could, like sneaking guns around. And that's not even doing the whole condition zero thing. This is cocked and locked. You could get away with some shit,
Oh
you
yeah.
know? Yeah. So I don't even
My
remember having
favorite
got.
was the clip that mounted the gun underneath a grip panel. It was just basically like a
I
clip
had one
like
of
on a
those.
pocket knife. Yep.
A
You
clip
could
draw.
just
I used
slip.
I
Yep.
used one of those. I
I
used
I actually thought they were pretty slick myself.
Yeah, it resulted in a lot of drop guns, but it got to the point what I would do is I had one permanently affixed to my gun. And then I had a holster and I expanded it so I could holster it into a regular holster with the clip draw and pull it out and work it, but if I needed to, I could always clip draw it.
Yep.
So I permanently had a clip draw on a 1911 for years. Years I did that. I'd got one of those bobtail guns, that
Hmm.
Ed Brown had made. I mean, he came out with those bobtails. I decided it took me a while to figure it out, but I didn't like those. I took a clip draw and cut it. They didn't even exist for the bobtails, and I cut it to fit the bobtail.
Yeah.
But yeah, those clip draws. I don't know if they're still in business, but well, that same company, Clip Draw, they made that for the Glock. It screwed into that plate on the back, or
Yep.
did they screw into the frame? Some of them, or the
No,
slot.
I thought it went into the grip plug.
No, not the grip plug.
No,
How did that? They did something, or maybe they were screwing into the frame. But I remember looking because the clip draw was so successful. Again, no one today would even acknowledge that they ever had a clip draw. But the clip draw was so successful. It's like the Glock came on the scene. They're
yeah.
like, we're going to offer clip draw for a Glock, and I remember looking at that, being like, no fucking way would I
How
ever
the
do
hell
that.
did they mount that?
I
I'll have to
think that
look
if I
that one up.
recall, they either screwed it to the slide or they screwed it to the frame. I'm thinking they screwed it in to the slide.
So there had to be some machining done.
Yeah, they drilled
It
something.
it wasn't just because like the 1911s, you just took 2 grip screws out and
Yeah.
put
I'll
it
have to
underneath the
post a
grip
picture.
panel, and yeah,
I'll have to post a picture of it. I've probably got a picture. I mean, you would just take your panel grip panel off, and you would take it's a piece of sheet metal, and you would drop it over the bushings, and then you'd put your grip back on top of that sheet of metal, then screw it down, and that's how it would attach.
there you
Yeah.
go. You had a built-in holster.
Yeah,
I carried a lot of small of the back 1911s that way. I had a commander I carried it that way for years.
mm-hmm. And again, there's going to be someone listening to this right now that's going to be like, they're going to be like, small the back is terrible. It is terrible. You fall on it, you could paralyze yourself, break your back. Like, I'm fully aware
Mm-hmm.
of all that, but people don't understand that back in the day, you didn't have all these holster options. And if you couldn't carry on a shoulder holster and you couldn't wear a 3 o'clock and you had nothing to really tuck into the front, you had to hide it in the back.
Yep.
And if you didn't have something where you could drape it like behind the hips, say at like 4:30 or 4 o'clock, small the back, that was always the real advantage to the 1911, to a lot of these guns, or the P7, was it was so thin, and with all of those controls on it, you could shove that goddamn gun anywhere. If you
Yep.
in an emergency, it wasn't ideal, but it's like, do I need a gun? Yes. I'd rather have it and not need it, or like, holy shit, I might really need this. If you're serious, like, you could get away with some goofy shit with a 1911 that no one
Yeah.
would ever even admit that they did today, because you just get killed on it on the internet. But it was real. I mean, it was
Yep.
absolutely real.
Well, and kind of like you alluded to, you get in the late 80s, early 90s. We live in a time now where there are so many states that have carry laws that allow concealed carry. That wasn't a thing back in the late 80s. There were a lot of states that did not have any type of civilian concealed carry options.
Oh no.
So
Oh
if you
no.
had to go armed, you sometimes had to get creative, and you were rolling the dice if you got caught.
Yeah, and I mean, in the '90s when I was carrying with the clip draw, there's no CCW.
Mm-mm.
Only two people carried guns: cops
Cops and robbers.
and bad guys.
Yep.
And there was no permit system.
And sneaky civilians.
Yeah, or professional dirtbags. So,
Yep.
yeah. I mean, it was just a different time. Like this, things are so much better now. But nothing's perfect, and I just I feel like we can't tell the truth on some things. The staccato is probably not drop safe. I mean, I think you can make the staccatos drop safe. I think there's probably a problem with the 320s. I don't know what it is exactly, but if it was somebody that I cared about and like, I love you, like, you know, you know, take this one with a thumb safety. Like, I don't know why, just take this one with a thumb safety. It's like, I mean, can't tell the truth. Oh yeah, clip draws were a thing. Oh yeah, clip draw. It's not ideal. Like, you get into a fight with a clip draw, like you're really rolling around in the pig pile. Oof. Yeah, that gun's gonna come out. You know what I mean? There's a good chance that
Yeah.
gun's gonna come out. So,
No, there's a lot
yeah.
of holsters today though that are kind of accepted as standards for concealed carry. That if you wind up rolling around on the ground, the gun's not going to be real secure. A lot of these open top holsters that just have a tension retention device in them, a screw you just tighten down and it just sandwiches the gun in between a couple layers of Kydex. You get rolling around on the ground, it's not going to be real hard, for one of them to pop out. In the training world, I kind of feel like people have lost sight of handgun retention techniques in favor of holster technology. And I believe there should be both myself, but that's just me.
Oh yeah, you should you should always have a plan to retain your firearm and not depend on the equipment.
Yeah.
You may have to fight your gun back into the holster.
Yep.
So, but I tell you what, let's talk about something that we haven't talked about in a while. I sent this to you. I don't know if you got a chance to read it, but let's talk about bump stocks for a minute. Because did you see that article I sent you
That
theorizing?
might be going different than where we put all of our money 6 months ago.
Yeah. So to recap, we published it, the oral arguments for the Supreme Court on bump stocks, and I thought it went horribly for us. I thought we were getting our ass kicked left and right, and and it was just I thought Ketanji Brown Jackson, I thought she did a pretty good job on some stuff. But what's interesting is, and I didn't quite really understand this, somebody smarter than us said that I guess they break up the person who writes the majority opinion on decisions. What they do is the court rules. They sit together and they have their rulings, so they vote, and then they have to write their opinions. The majority opinion, if there's a dissenting opinion, or a whatever opinion. And what they don't do is they don't want to have, like, I'm going to make this up just because I don't want to pick on it. They don't want Supreme Justice Bob to have to write all 15 I have to write all 15 opinions. Hold on one second. I have to write all 15 opinions. So what they do is they break up, like if Bob is if he's voting for, if he's one of four justices or five justices that vote this way, Bob gets to write this opinion. Then if there's different five justices that are going to vote a certain way and Bob is in that group, he may not write that opinion. They'll give it to another justice so they can spread the work out. And what people are saying is it looks like that the justices who would be writing the majority opinion strike or basically getting rid of bump stocks, those justices have already written their opinions. And it looks like that the justices who would who would vote in favor of bump stocks haven't really written opinions yet. And if you look at that math and you look at the docket, some people are saying there's a possibility here that the justices who want to allow bump stocks to continue might have won. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah. The only thing is, after listening to the oral arguments, it was a little shaky for me who was actually in favor and who wasn't on a couple of them. There were
Yeah,
a couple that were asking, that were going down a road that it's like, I didn't think this would really be a road you go down on this issue, but okay,
some of it was maybe devil's advocate to understand the technology, or to maybe understand
Yeah.
how what's the downstream effects of these. And I think that some of the justices were doing that. I think in particular Justice Who's the woman from Notre Dame that Trump appointed that's Catholic that has like 100 kids?
Comey Barrett.
Amy Coney. Is it Coney or Comey?
Comey
She,
with an
Comey.
M.
So she has So she has the same name as FBI director. So she was one, but if it if it if this analysis on the majority opinion things holds, it would seem that even though all those oral argument questions were being debated back and forth, it may end up being a 5-4 conservative liberal, just ideological split.
Yeah.
So I thought that was. I thought that was. I think bump stocks are stupid, but how do you ban physics?
Yep.
And how you write a law or pass a law. So maybe
Well, and here's just another wrench in it. I mean, it's kind of hard to predict because, like we said, oral arguments sounded horrible for us. The way the splits appearing possibly by who's writing the decisions is at least hopeful. But a year ago, who would have thought there would have been a 9-0 ruling in favor of the NRA versus the state of New York?
Was it a 9-0?
Yep.
Damn, I forgot that. Well,
I
I'll tell you
mean,
what.
you didn't ever put money on that one.
No, yeah, I didn't see that coming. In other news, well, kind of in the industry news, but I thought this is kind of this is actually a related topic, and I thought it was interesting. So, did you hear what the hippie? I think it's in was it New York? Let me check. New York, yeah, the hippies in New York. So, there's been a problem with it's a problem when the kids on the street have a name for it. And the kids on the street, if you buy these devices that you put on a striker plate on a Glock from China that turns a Glock into a fully automatic machine gun, the kids call them switches.
Yeah.
They're so well. This is something that was so like this would be something that you have to like the kids on the streets call them switches. Elementary kids know what switches are. Rappers know what switches are. It's such a common thing that it was such a piece of technology that was so esoteric and so specialized that only '07 machine gun manufacturers or '07 firearms manufacturers and the most erudite of machine gun manufacturers would even know this was possible. 10 years or 15 years ago. But now it's become almost pop culture. So, and there's so many of these things coming into the country. Politicians in New York have decided we know how to stop the switches in America. So, switches are illegal. New machine guns after 1986 are illegal. So the hippies have decided they're just going to ban Glock pistols. Have you heard this one? Yeah, they're going to ban Glock pistols. How's that going to work?
Yeah, I don't see that one passing muster. I can see constitutional issues with it right off the top. You're trying to ban something that doesn't become illegal until you specifically modify it. It's not like a worn sear or something like that, and they go burp every once in a while. You have to physically change parts out. So if they were going to go down that road,
You
think
have
of
to
how many
engine
guns that you could grandfather into that.
Look, you could take like your Ruger Mini 14. It doesn't take a whole lot of skill to put a staple in that to make it repeatedly fire. To
Yeah.
actually design and manufacture what they call a switch that goes on the striker plate on the back of a slide of a Glock pistol requires engineering and manufacturing skill. This is not something that somebody can do at home at the very least, maybe with some 3D printing technology. But it's not like you could just get in there with a file and just kind of fake it.
No.
So it's a pretty high level thing. It's an engineered product, and it's already illegal. So now they're like, well, let's ban the Glock. But the thing is, the same amount of effort that goes into a Glock to turn a Glock into doing that, you could probably do that to a VP9.
Yeah.
You could probably do it to a Walther P99.
Yeah.
Or the PPQs or all those guns. You could probably do it. I don't know. Does the back of a 320's got a plate on it, right?
You know, honestly, I don't remember because I have been out of them for a little while now.
I remember looking at Doc's because we put the Wilson grip module on his, and it's because I remember actually having to look at it, and I think it's got like a little type of plate. It's got some kind of access back there,
Yeah.
and if you get access through that back of that slide where that striker sits, I mean, you could just even practically speaking, it's not going to take long for somebody in China be like, "Ooh, they banned Glock." Even if Joe Biden win presidency, they banned Glock. Let's start making it for the M&P. It's
Yep.
like, I mean, someone's just going to engineer one because somebody had to engineer this. People are like, I can print one on a 3D printer. That's true, but you didn't design it. You didn't engineer it. You didn't measure it. You just have a file that someone else did the intellectual work. You just copied and pasted it. And it's like,
And how do you even get there? How do you, I mean, somebody had to sit around and go, we could modify the backplate on that. And I mean, just how does that even get in somebody's head?
I think in fairness, I think it started with the post sample. I think it probably with the '07 manufacturers with the post sample, because a true Glock, like I used to work with a guy who worked for Glock, and he had a true Glock 18, but an actual, there's so few Glock 18 pistols that are transferable because they didn't really get out and before '86, May of '86. So people that were in the machine gun game or service machine guns, made machine guns, or whatever, they were like, I can make a post sample. Can I turn a Glock 17 into a Glock 18? And I think they started creating the stuff on the back of the striker plate, because if I remember a true Glock 18, because I haven't even seen one in a long time, I think it actually has some kind of little rotating lever on the side of the slide. It's not on the back.
Yeah,
I think
that's
it's
the
on
way
the
I
side.
remember it. It was on the
Yeah.
left-hand side, wasn't it?
I don't remember what it was, but I think you had to reach up with your support hand and switch it.
Yeah.
But I think the post sample dudes in the space, they were like, they went in through the plate and they just mounted in. They were like, "We'll go in through the plate." Then they were like, "Well, we could mount They somehow decided they could mount something. They could create a structure to the plate that they could switch it from the plate side, not drill in through whatever the lever that Glock has." So I think that's where it came from. And then once the idea got out, it got copied by I guess the Chinese got, when they stole the F-35 plans, they also got the
They
Glocks.
grabbed the Glock switch on the way by too.
Yeah, we were
Since it
like,
was
oh
handy.
yeah. Well, little did we know that apparently the Chinese stealth fighters don't work. They're apparently quite visible. So when we thought that they were stealing all the F-35 technology, it turns out that the Chinese were just stealing the Glock switch technology. That's what all that was, because that's the only shit that works.
Well, don't forget the solvent traps from China now.
Didn't
They're getting good at
AT
catching them.
Well, no, I think that no, there was a company that was doing solvent traps. Um, They were selling a kit, and they were even approved. They were selling it like, we will sell you a solvent trap with the baffles and everything. And all you have to do, like, what was it? They were doing something, because I think Chris Costa was even marketing for them, and it was, what were they doing? You'd have to send. They were somehow trying to get you. Basically, they were trying to get you to buy the product, and then you get your Form 1 or whatever from the ATF.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you send them a copy of a Form 1, and they'll send you the solvent trap, and then you drill it yourself.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've got a buddy that did one of those.
But
He had to
I
do
think that all went
the
out of
Form
business.
1, get it approved, and then he had to drill out the baffles and assemble it.
But I think did the ATF shut that down?
I don't know, because it was a couple 3-4 years ago. Because he used my drill press. He bought my drill press to do it.
Yeah.
But he had to do the Form 1 first. No, I'm talking like the ones you could just order off of Amazon, and they just showed up at your door. But Customs and ATF, I've known a few guys that ordered some of them up, and they get a letter from ATF saying their stuff got snatched, whatever port it came in.
Oh, it was coming in from overseas?
Oh yeah. You could literally like buy solvent traps online, and they were coming in from China. Well, ATF and Customs got that figured out, so they started whatever port they were coming in, say Long Beach. They'd find a shipment of them and the manifests, and then they get the records of where it was going, and you would just get a letter in the mail. Yep, your shit's been confiscated. Nice try.
Yeah, there was a company that I thought they were the way they were machining them. The last one, I think they disappeared. I think the ATF finally got tired of it. But they were kind of working hand in hand. Like, they were trying to say, we'll send you the thing when you send us a copy of the Form 1.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it was you send a Form 1 through their website, and then they'll send you the thing. And they were manufacturing in such a way, like maybe they had a jig or something, like that way, like it was like their argument was that they're making a solvent trap, but it's so high quality that it competes with real suppressors, and you're doing
Yeah.
it legally because you're going to get the Form 1.
Yep.
And I remember Chris Costa was pimping them for a minute. I think that all just, I think they got the bitch slapped somehow for some reason. I think when Biden came in, because it's
Yeah.
been about 4 years, about 3. Yeah, I think that's when that happened. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, and by the way, banning Glocks. Remember, like, some of the arguments about, um, banning certain things or whether they're in common use.
Mm-hmm.
It's like whether something is rare and unusual and dangerous, or whether it is common and in everyday use by the average civilian or citizen. That's some of the arguments for 30-round magazines and AR-15s. There's been so many Glocks sold in the United States. There's an author who's not a gun guy who wrote a book about Glock pistols, and the title of the book is, and I quote, "America's Gun," unquote. Like, that would absolutely come up. That would, I mean,
That
this,
had to set the 1911 boomers off.
yeah, but I mean, it's like, I mean, they still sells many
That's kind of
1911s.
true.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's like, I mean, let's just be real. No one's going to want to admit this. There's there's two guns in America. And I look, I have a Colt Python, like we buy all kinds of shit. There's two guns in America. There's Glocks and there's 1911s. And, you could talk about Zevs, or you could talk about Wilson, or you could talk about, PSA Glocks, or you talk about Rock Island Armory, or I could say TSUS if they work. But they're still either Glocks or 1911s. And that's
Yep.
kind of really where it's worked out to be. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, but those are the two guns that are really, that's it. I mean, everything's pretty much a derivative of that.
Yep.
I mean, like Berettas are turning in the 1911s. You see Berettas with frame mounted safeties now. It's like, where'd you get that idea from?
Yep.
So
well, just like my P220, it's single action only with a frame mounted safety. You carry it cocked and locked just like a 1911.
That's a that 220S is a 1911. I mean, you could say it's a SIG all you want. It's a 1911. So that's that's kind of where Hey, did you see the did I send it to you? It was kind of goofy, but I thought it was really interesting. Where is it? The company, let me find it. There's a company that is making red dots. They're making a way to mount a red dot to your pistol. It came up at the NRA show, but they clip it on with a magnet to your gun. Did you see that?
You sent me the link and I browsed over it and then I got sidetracked on some stuff. I don't know what to make of that yet.
Well, here's the thing, and it's like, yeah, I see all the problems. Okay, I see all the problems. However, if you think about it objectively, I have 2 point, I have an observation, and then I have a application. The observation that I made, they showed the guy sticking it onto a gun, and he was banging it on a table. How like you charge a gun with with the flat. He was banging this on a table, and that red dot was not coming off that gun. But then he was able to pull it up and off, and it came off. And what they're doing is they've got a plate. It might be a proprietary rear sight, but what they're doing is they have an iron. They have a iron, probably iron in both irons as in irons, but also iron is in made of iron. They got a sight that you can put on the back of your gun, replace your irons, and it creates enough. So you still have your iron sights on your gun, but it creates enough of a surface or the angle that when you clip this plate to it, it locks into it. Like, I'm not saying you could drop it off a helicopter and it wouldn't pop off, but what I thought was interesting, it would be a way to retrofit red dots onto existing iron-sighted guns without having to cut them. Or it also gives the user the ability to, maybe I want to try a red dot, but I don't want to really commit to it. Well, you could stick this thing on, use it, and then decide I really like it. Or it could even be a situation where I'm an iron-sighted guy. If the thing would hold 0, and you're like, that motherfucker is 100 yards away, pull your red dot out of your pocket, click, put it on there, and out there at 100 yards, and go pow. And so it's a goofy idea, but it's one of those things where you wonder in 20 or 30 years with iterations of technology and mounting, it could end up being like the standard. 30 years from now, you may see a situation where it's like, oh yeah, remember when all them millennials were cutting their slides? God, heathens. Like all these guns with their cut slides are ruined because we don't cut our slides to put red dots on them now, you goofball. Like, you just
Yeah.
don't know what the future is going to hold, and that's what I thought was interesting about it. Not the idea of like, I've been in fucking, I'm sure you have too, but I've been in fucking fights, with guns and shit's getting dropped and, everybody's getting to just, and like the thing coming off. Like, I understand it's not duty rated. Like, nobody would make that argument. But as a concept, I was like, God damn, this is really interesting. When I saw that guy banging that sight on that table and it wasn't coming off, I was like, holy cow. I
Well,
thought it just interesting.
look at how much of the stuff that is standard now that we have on our pistols and rifles that started out as some really goofy ass idea 15 years ago that'll never catch on. Red
I
dots
remember.
on pistols. What kind
Remember.
of an idiot is going to mount a red dot on a pistol?
It gets better than that. Accessory rails. I
Yeah.
mean, I remember when we used to. You would literally, people would weld or rivet or silver solder rails to their guns.
Mm-hmm.
Now you go to you got pocket rocket guns that got little mini accessory rails on them.
Yeah. Put little
It's like,
TLR 7s on them and
yeah.
off you go.
I mean, people were
Well,
drilling dust covers. They were doing all kinds of crazy shit. You had
there's
people.
a
They
there's
were.
a
They
picture
were.
of Mac floating around with a mag light, like a two D cell mag light on a M16 that's mounted on the forearm with hose clamps.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know,
You know.
and you looked, it's like, well, that's kind of smart, but it actually looks really rather stupid and flimsy too. But it got the job done. But it opened up the idea to better mounting systems, and look what we have now.
hmm Yeah, I thought it was yeah, I thought that was just really interesting, and I'm definitely I'll put a video. I think the TFB did a video on it. I'll put it up in the comments section. But I thought that really got my attention. I bet you that got the attention of a lot of people. Oh, I bet you it got attention of a lot, not the consumer base, but the manufacturing base and the engineering base and the people that actually
Yeah,
make shit. They're like, wow, that's interesting. It's not quite there, but it's like, you know, I don't know. You could, in theory, you could take a World War One 1911 with its GI rear sight cut, push that out, put in a different rear sight that would be just as usable, just maybe a little bit bigger, just as usable. Maybe the front sight. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't even have to change the front sight because I don't think you can on the World War Ones. But then you don't have to really modify the gun. You can change the rear sight. You still have iron sights. Grandpa likes his iron sights. You can mount a red dot to Grandpa's
mm-hmm.
World War One 1911 if you really wanted to, and you could convert it. Be like, fuck that. Push that out. If it ain't cold, it's a copy. Put the real sight back in. And it's like, wow, like it's just amazing. Like it's just like that is, I think. I mean, I'll tell you what, if I could invest money in this company, I'll tell you what, if I could talk to them and see what they're thinking and their thought processes and what they're, you know, how they got to where they are and where they think they could go, I would be interested in possibly investing in that company. I
Yeah.
think I think it's I think I think I thought that was a very obviously it probably entertained me more than most people listening to this podcast, but that's what I got. So I thought it was interesting. So what's been going on with you? Anything besides talking about the weather?
Well, that's the most common conversation around here. I've been
Yeah,
carrying
okay.
that little 442 around appendix a little bit. Gonna have to probably get a different holster to make that work. The clip on the holster I'm using needs to be just a hair bit longer to really get over the top of that core belt that I wear.
Oh
It
yeah.
has a tendency to kind of work its way up. I haven't, had it skitter across the Walmart floor yet, but there was a couple of times where, the very bottom curve of the clip had actually kind of come over the top of the belt, and just not really comfortable with that. So,
Can you
uh,
take the clip off and put a different kind of clip on it, or is it kind
no,
of
well, not really
attached?
without destroying the holster. I mean, this holster really isn't made for appendix carry. It's made for more, IWB at like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. It just happened to work for my body shape that I could carry it that way. So it's like, I'll give it a try. It's not a Glock, so I'm not gonna accidentally shoot my most favorite thing in the whole world. But I have done it enough. I'm getting comfortable enough. I think I'm probably going to put the money into a decent holster for that little 442 and start carrying it that way.
Have you identified any holster makers you're looking at?
I've got a guy up in Bellevue, Nebraska that does custom kydex and isn't actually one of those guys that just, presses it down as hard as he can, throws it in the oven. I mean, he makes pretty good quality stuff, so that's probably who I'll have do it. Just take the gun up, drop it off, come back in a week, and there we go. He's done several holsters for me, but as much as I don't like kydex, I think that's going to be the option for appendix carry for that, for me anyway.
Do you think you'd have to put like a wedge on the bottom of it, like a foam wedge on the inside?
No, I don't think so. It actually rides really good. If that clip was an eighth of an inch longer, we'd probably be golden. It's just the size of the belt that I wear. It says it's 1.5 inches wide. But it's thick. So, well, you've seen them. You've got one. They're kind of a thick belt. If it was just a skosh thinner or just a skosh shorter, that clip would fully snap over and close up like I want. It just doesn't feel as secure as I want it to trust it for a lot of carry. So I'll either change belts or I'll get a different holster, or probably both.
Okay. That's I mean, when you get the holster, definitely share it, and would like to see pictures of it, and how does that guy, how does he heat up his kydex? Does he have like a heat
I
press,
don't
or
know how
does
he does it. Well, he's not like the basement bandit. He's been doing it from the jump. So I don't know. I'll have to ask him about that. But
I like to see it.
yeah, he makes really good holsters, and he's been to the Cerakote school and he's certified, and so he makes the majority of his money now doing Cerakote and custom holsters.
Wait a minute, Cerakote school?
Yeah,
Certified?
you can actually become a certified Cerakote applicator.
What's the what's the I'm trying to remember what's the one thing that all the people was is the something black belt certified. I can't remember. I can't remember what it was. And it's like, yeah, I'll go to Cerakote school. I'm certified Cerakote. I
Well,
want you to I want you to paint my face like Martin Sheen in Apocalypse Now. Cerakote my face. Let me see what you got.
yeah. And I don't think it's so much, learning how to do the different, stencils and stuff like that. I've seen some really, really shitty Cerakote jobs. Guys that watch a couple of YouTube videos and go, well, I can get an air sprayer and I can do this. And yeah, it just comes out looking like worse than rattle can shit. And then I've seen some of the stuff he's done, and it's like, wow. I mean, it's a professional job, and the way he explains it and what I understand, it's similar to actually like rust gluing, like my grandpa did. 90% of it is in the prep work of the metal. The actual spray is, if you understand not to overspray and not to too heavy spray and do layers, you got that part whooped. It's the degreasing and the prepping of everything to get it to take good and be even.
Besides degreasing, how do you prep work, like, to get different, like he does
Well,
patterns?
you've got to take everything up. Well, he does all kinds of patterns and stencils, and and all that. And that's kind of the artwork part of it. And it looks to me like if you're not using pre-made stencils, uh, I call it cotton candy Cerakote. I've seen, I saw an AR that was done up, like with when that Joker movie came out with, who was it, Gal Gadot or Margot Robbie or whatever, and the Joker, and
Mm-hmm.
it was pretty
Yeah, well,
cool. It looked like a kid's gun, but I mean,
I never saw the movie, but I've
but the
seen, I don't know,
actual,
100 clips
yeah,
of her.
yeah, uh, I call that more like cotton candy Cerakoting. It's more themed.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but there's a lot of stencils and patterns you can buy, and then there's just guys that can freehand it, and go out behind the house and get some leaves and switchgrass and do stuff, like for marshalling camo on duck guns, even though just about everything's coming from the factory now with some type of a pattern. But yeah, there's actually you can go to school and become a certified Cerakote, whatever they call that, applicator.
So I can't remember. So is Cerakote is that where you air dry it, or do you have to heat it to dry it?
You have to heat that. Duracoat is what you can air dry, and I've actually done a few guns with Duracoat, and it's the same way. If you take your time, you got to take everything apart and take stuff off and degrease it, and and you have to spray it lots of little thin coats, so you don't get runs and drips and such as that. But
How long
Duracoat
does
you
that?
just hang up and let it air dry.
How long does it take to air dry? Is it like 24 hours or like a week?
It's been a few years since I've done one, but just off the top of my head, it was like 24 hours and you could handle it and not mark it up. And I want to say it was, like 4 or 5 days, uh, and it was fine to put together and shoot then.
Hmm. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we've been going for a while, and I've kind of resolved to not do crazy long podcasts. I want to do more frequent podcasts, a little bit
Yeah.
shorter. And we still haven't gotten to talk about that dang deer that we we wanted to talk, the hunting deer. But we're gonna do podcast. I'm gonna stay disciplined, so we're gonna do the police
Yep.
blotter, and then we're gonna go ahead and toss it. So I got three of them here. The first one is out of California. So so I have to tell the story. So there's a neighborhood in California in outside of Los Angeles, Azusa, and for 10 years, somebody has been running around that town shooting ball bearings into cars, windows, and just general, just destroying things, and into buildings, into
Hmm.
headlights, into just anything that they can run into. And for 10 years, the cops have been trying to figure out who it is. And they finally found out who it was, and they arrested the guy with the SWAT team. And the perpetrator was named Prince Raymond King, and he's known as the serial slingshot shooter. He's been doing all of this with a slingshot, ball bearings. They've got collections of ball bearings that they've been collecting for 10 years. They got bags and bags of them. They went into his house. They caught him with the slingshot red-handed and ball bearings. Like, it was a big deal. Guess how old Mr. Prince Raymond King is, who's been shooting up this neighborhood for 10 years with a slingshot?
Yeah, I'm not sure I want to comment on that because I'm not sure the statute of limitations are up from when I was a kid.
Yeah, I used to use marbles. But what guess how old Prince Raymond King is?
19.
So you're close. You just have to flip the numbers. He's 81.
Oh, jeez.
So 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 they got the big caper, the the slingshot bungalow bandit, the detectives, surveillance, probably ring cameras probably did him in. They SWAT team hit him. They got him red-handed, all the information. Prince Raymond King, arrested, booked, charged, 81 years of age. It's over. He's going to see the wheels of justice, and the next day he dies. Next, he got away with it.
Where do you find this stuff?
So the next story is out of California. And I don't know if this is necessarily a police blotter story or really if it's like a feel-good story. But we'll we'll present it as a police blotter and perps, since I'm sure that's the way it was written by the people. So 33 people were arrested in, let me get this town right. 33 people were arrested in Newburgh, and outside of or in Orange County, California. They were trafficking guns, and which is obviously in California a big no-no. Can you guess where they were trafficking guns? And there were some drugs and whatever, but they were where they were trafficking guns from. That they arrested 33 people. I think these people have been buying guns. Where these guns were coming from? Take a guess. Like, you think it's like is it a trap house? Is it a corner, like a drug corner? Is it maybe is it an executive at an airport in a private airport that's selling guns out of his house? I got an update on that too. Is it at gun shows? Where are the guns coming from? You can guess. I'll give you a clue. I'll give you a clue. It involves a vehicle.
Ice cream truck.
Damn, you were close. It was a food truck.
Taco truck.
Taco trucks. Get a taco, get a Glock. It sounds like a
Glocko.
business to me. The Glocko. Oh, that's the
Glocko
title.
with extra Glocko.
That's the title, buddy, right there. That's the title, right at the end. The Glocko Taco. That's it right there. That's the name of it. So the last of the police blotters is out of the Bronx, New York. The police, let's see here, hold on. A school aide, Estevan Hamilton, 23 years of age, was arrested by the police because he worked at a grammar school and he wrote a love letter to a 10-year-old girl. I assume someone in his class or someone he was interfacing with. This guy's 23 years old. He wrote a love letter, like on paper, blah, 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 blah. You're awesome. Ever heard of Mary Kay Letourneau? It's going to be great. Whatever this person wrote to this 10-year-old girl. And he was arrested, but that's not really the interesting part. Do you know how the staff of the school discovered that Mr. I'm not going to call him Mr. I lost his name here. This is such a. These are Estevan Hamilton. How they found out Estevan Hamilton was writing love letters to 10-year-olds at PS 481, the Streambridge School on White Plains Road in Van Nest. Do you have any idea how they found out?
I'm not even going to hazard a guess.
Maybe maybe you think like maybe the kids talked, or maybe they found the letter, or I don't know, maybe they thought he took an unusual interest in the girl. Maybe surveillance
sent it
camera.
in the mail and mom opened it up.
Sent it in the mail, mom opened it? No. How
No.
they discovered that this guy had sent this letter or handed this letter to this 10-year-old girl was the girl's stepfather showed up to the school and decked him in the middle of the school. They're like, there's a fight in room 14 and somebody's beating up Estevan, Estevan Hamilton. And so everyone's freaking out, and they call the cops, and it's a big old mess. And when all the dust settles, this motherfucker wrote a love letter to my 10-year-old stepdaughter. And so this guy didn't go to the principal. He didn't go to the police. He didn't go to the counselor's office. He went to guns. Well, fisticuff. He went to the big guns. He brought the gun show. And, you got to respect a man that's going to put in the work. Well, this wraps up episode 339 of the John1911 Podcast. If you want to see different stories or pictures, links, stuff like this, please go to the website at John1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun, everybody. Have a good night.
Have a great weekend.